Hello and welcome to another beautiful time again. This is the desk, reaching you live and direct from the nation's capital, Abuja, Nigeria. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo, and of course, on the desk, like you all know, is that time where we come to the table and, of course, look at national issues arising from the national dailies. Whatever the situation is, the headlines is what talking about, is what discussing. That's what we do on the desk. And of course, look at socio-political issues. What is it that the people need to know? Do we need to throw more light on certain maybe situations or topical issue matters arising from the national daily? Those are the kind of things we do. And as a matter of fact, this evening, I will be joined by my guest. Okay. They will be joining me. Of course, I'll have one live in the studio. And of course, one will be joining via phone call, as a matter of fact. But then, you just need to know that so many things are happening, beginning from the actions, matters arising. Sometimes you see strike actions go on. It's not all about the strike action, but aftermath of the strike action is very important. The implications of the strike action, what are the advantages? Is it harmful to the academic sector? We'll look at all of that. Then, of course, we'll also look at the protests that just happened. The impact of the protest is still on. Some people are already in prison or being reminded in prison because of that protest that happened. Then, apart from the protest, we'll also look at the polity to see what is happening from the different political parties. And as a matter of fact, we'll also look at very, very important and serious issues emanating from tanker accident on the highway. We've had a lot of people losing their lives as a result of explosions. These explosions, sometimes they are human-made, sometimes they are mechanical, and sometimes they are natural. But whatever it is, I think there is need for some level of preventive measure, because we need to come up with some preventive measure to stop these things from happening. If we can't stop them completely, there are things we can do so that it doesn't happen. What are the things that is responsible for this explosion? It is something that should be talked about. This is not the first time we're hearing about explosion, of course. But then, apart from explosion, we've also had of boats capsizing in Nigeria. A lot of things happening in Nigeria. But then, the painful aspect of the whole thing is the fact that these are situations that can be controlled. If we want it controlled, there are situations that can be controlled. But why is nobody doing anything about it? And that makes it worrisome. A lot of people have come up with different complaints to say, well, as a matter of fact, these incidences are something that can be prevented from happening. But sometimes you see some form of laxity, the authorities being relaxed, and until something happened, then you begin to see people running helter-skelter. Preventive measures were not put in place, but then people want damage control all the time, which is not the best. Any society that must grow beyond the level it is, then something different needs to be done. It is an error for you to do the same thing, the same way, and expect a different result. A sane man would not want to do the same thing and expect a different result. This is something that you've been doing for a very long time, and you are expecting different results from the results that you've been getting. A lot of people, I don't know if it is pride or something. There is nothing bad if you stood maybe low, all right, for someone who is older than you, and you try to get knowledge, get ideas, strategies from them for you to make informed decisions. It's not a bad idea. Let's say, for instance, you have a big conglomerate, or maybe you are in government office and you have SAs, all right? We have senior special advisors, you have assistants and all of that. These people are not just there to collect government money alone. They are there so that you can consult with them before you take decisions, before you make decisions. You consult with them. That's the reason they are there. And I think it's appalling if we have people today who are called SAs, all right, PAs, and if your superior is not doing the right thing and you call yourself his special advisor, his personal assistant, then you should also feel bad. Because some of the things that we see in our national dailies are some things that ordinarily shouldn't happen at all. Take, for instance, tanker explosion. Is it as a result of the carelessness of the driver? Has it been happening? What has been done for it not to happen again? All of these are part of the discussion that we are going to be having today on the desk. And don't forget that on the desk today, we'll also look at other issues, all right? From the National Assembly to the House of Rep, to the states, to the local government, among the youths, among, of course, the women. A lot of people have been talking about inclusion of women, as a matter of fact, in politics, in governance. And some persons are of the opinion that the women that we've had, just a few of them were able to match up. All right, I wouldn't want to call them right now. And some women will tell you there are also men that are not meeting up with the standard, that are not even supposed to be there at all, but they are there. So it is a two-sided coin, all right, that needs to be looked at, that needs to be considered. As a matter of fact, one of the stories in the National Daily today has to do with the fact that the Christian Association of Nigeria have come out to say, well, the claims of genocide, Christian genocide, is true. And the federal government said, well, that claim didn't just go down well. I think what we should be doing in such situation, evidence is the end of every argument. If you said there is Christian genocide, then let the proofs be on the table. So many things are happening, all right? A lot of people, people are seeing what is happening, all right? As it has to do with terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and all of that, burning down of worship centers for both religion, the major religions in the country, and so many other things. Dastardly acts that is being perpetrated by these ungodly people. But as it is, I think we should talk with practical examples, all right, evidences, so that it can be substantiated and it will end every argument. Even though a lot of Nigerians know the truth, but then this also needs to have what we call backing. And as a matter of fact, let's go on a quick break. After this break, we'll return and we'll get into more discussions on the desk tonight. already seated in the studio. We want to talk about the Academic Staff Union of University that have suspended the 2 weeks warning strike. But then let me introduce to you my guest on the desk this evening in the presence of Uyi Agbomofuegbe. It's good to have you join us on the desk this evening.
Thank you so very much, Ramsey.
Well, I want to talk about the Academic Staff Union, of course, but then our second guest will be joining us via the phone, but then the internet is so strong right now. So let's just see how that unfolds. But notwithstanding, we are capable to bring you the discussion this evening. Now, let's look at, of course, the suspension of the strike. As it's been said, the Academic Staff Union of Universities have announced the suspension of its ongoing 2 weeks warning strike. The national president of ASU himself, in the presence of Professor Chris Piwuna, made this known in an ongoing press briefing that happened in Abuja today. According to Piwuna, the decision, of course, what were you expecting? It stemmed from the meeting of the National Executive Council, which was held overnight. And that's to tell you of how serious, because if you could remember, before the strike started, we said it was on one of our programs. You and I were talking about it, and we're like, all right, if Pengasson and Dangote strike, refinery strike, can be suspended within 48 to 72 hours. Why not? That of ASU can also be suspended too. But as it is right now, there was a meeting overnight, and the 2 week suspension has already been lifted. All right. We can't categorically say whether or not the strike is over, but as a matter of fact, the overnight meeting ended as late, or should I say as early as 4 a.m. You always talk about, you know, anytime we're talking about late hour meetings like this, I'll always remember one thing you said, that for politicians, their meetings will last from 11, maybe 11 or 8 p.m. even, until maybe 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning. What are they discussing? You won't hear them discuss anything according to what you were saying that day. Not what to benefit Nigeria, but who is going to be next? Your turn is over there, and all of that. So this meeting lasted between the executives and ASU until 4 a.m. and that was some early hours of this morning. But now, Piwuna actually noted that the union decided to embark on the strike due to the failure of the government to meet its demands on time. All right. Can we now say the demand has been met because the strike is already suspended? And what do you think about reaction? Were you thinking it was going to take this long?
Well, first of all, again, I appreciate the fact that you got me in on this conversation, Ramsey. It will be a bit naive, all right, to say or expect that the issues have been resolved. I think at best what the government has done with ASU is to propose, at best, from what we know at this point, a package of offers, or let's just say an offer, made an offer to our city, say, going forward on account of X, Y, Z, or these issues we have in front of us. This is what we are proposing. Of course, as is always the case, this is pretty much the standard procedure. ASU takes it back to its NEC, that's the National Executive Committee of the Union, to say, look at what the government, the federal government, that is, has presented or offered us. And then, of course, members of the NEC will also look at it and then reach a resolution. However, what we have seen with this is the leadership of the union saying that we are going to suspend. Now, let's be very, as it were, let's be circumspect, right, with the words that they are using. I think ASU is picking these words carefully here. They are using the word suspend.
They didn't call off.
Yes, they've suspended it. So that, again, is suggestive of the possibility that the issues have not been laid to bed, right? If that is the case, without considering it is actually, It means that there's more work to be done during this time window, all right, when the suspension has been suspended and students can go back to school, lecturers can return to class, because we understand some of the students were either already in the middle of their exams or were just on the verge of starting, all right. But you see, again, this brings us back to the consequence or the major consequence of strikes, the fact that it disrupts the academic calendar, it interrupts the what is supposed to be the uninterrupted flow, right, of academic exercise or the academic process. Students are not so sure what is going to happen next. They are traumatized for the most part, but nobody is talking about that traumatic experience. We are more, as it were, we are more occupied or preoccupied with the desire to want to see the strike called off, lecturers back to class, and things like that. But I'm also asking myself, I got talking with a colleague a while ago, whose candid opinion is, if you have had these issues since 2009, which is some 16 years ago, I mean, who stopped you from saying, look, let's shut down this system until all of these issues are trashed, rather than do it in piecemeal in a way that even further complicates the already bad situation? Why don't you say, if we have 8 issues that we need to resolve, until we are able to find a solution to a minimum 6 of them, we're not going back to class? Because if a situation is as bad as it is with our education system, and again, let's be very clear and candid with ourselves, Ramsey, Nigeria's tertiary education, in this case in particular, is in a bad shape. If it's not in a bad shape, why are governors, why are politically exposed people, whether those who were elected or appointed, not sending their children to these schools? Somebody cracked a joke today, I think it was, about the owner of one of Nigeria's private universities, whose children are schooling in universities abroad. But he's back here telling people that his university is the best. All right? So it just paints a picture of how not pleasant at all the university education system is in Nigeria. But the question is, who is going to bail the cat? Look, by nature, if people's interest is not tied to a system or a process, they will not be interested in fixing or doing anything or lifting a muscle about it. That's the reason. Let me give you an example. You and I work here. We hosted Global Morning together today. Imagine if you were not working for Global Television. No matter how much you love Global Television, no matter how much you love the management, you are not going to be interested in whether the hosts are going to be there early enough, whether they are going to discuss issues that are pertinent to the situation Nigeria faces today. It is none of your business, because your interest is somewhere else. However, because you work here, your interest is tied to this organization, you're already prepping and gearing up towards tomorrow again, because you know you have to be here to host that show for another 2+ hours. So what it means is, for the president, his children are not schooling in Nigeria. For all the governors, as far as we know, their children are not schooling in Nigerian universities. Or we can say their children did not school in Nigerian universities. So what is going to be the incentive that is going to motivate them to want to do something drastic about the state of education or Nigerians' university education in this country? So it means that until we begin to understand that where your treasure is, there will your heart be also, we'll continue to live in denial and be hypocritical about these issues.
That's true. Continue to live in denial and be hypocritical about these issues. Because you said something very vital. What if there is, maybe, should I say, a presidential order or a rule, or maybe just bring up something to ensure that, number one, nobody leaves the country for treatment abroad. Nobody sends their children abroad for study. Let everyone, all of us, study back at home. If we have something like that, do you think the system would be better than what it is right now? Because in fact, that example you gave was something else for me. You are you're doing an advert here, wasting, I don't want to say wasting money, it's an advert. Some persons may buy into it.
Right.
You're advertising your school as the best school, as a school that has quality lecturers and all of that, good standard. but your children are not attending the school. I overheard you talking about a particular governor, also maybe a political office holder, that the children attended a public school or
Right,
thereabout.
a former deputy governor
A former deputy governor
who left office not too long ago.
who left office not too long ago.
Right.
If meaning we still have some people who believe in the system.
Right.
But now, looking at the whole situation now, we're talking about ASU. And it is true. Something that happened for several years ago. Why is it that ASU decided, because the more they're on strike, to say the truth, the more the hunger will increase.
Right.
Because for some who sell handouts will not be sold. The salary is not coming in. You're not selling handouts. And don't you think the sale of handout, and like we're saying it, was it on this program, that an angry lecturer will have maybe little or nothing to offer the students? Okay, as a matter of fact.
Right.
So now, looking at this situation now, can we now say, because we've had a lot of promises, ASU will tell us, well, we're promised this, but we never saw the result and all of that. Can we say at this point in time that the government is not giving education the priority that it needs by not giving these people the kind of attention? I will always refer to the Dangote and Pengasyn strike, actually, because that's one strike that was called off within a very short period of time, as far as I can remember anyway.
Couple of days.
But
you see, that again takes us back to the narrative I just established a while ago, Ramsey. Quite frankly, ask yourself, what is in this ASU strike for the government and the political class? And what is in it for the government and the political class, on the other hand, in the Dangote-Pengasyn disputes, right? So, again, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also, is a life's principle. So if your interest is not in it, you are not going to likely invest anything, whether it's your energy, your money, or your time. Again, another example, 4 or 5 years ago in this country, we had to grapple with the challenge of COVID-19. Did you see, and can you still remember the efforts that government made? How quick, how intensive those efforts are, how massive the investments were, because the political class wanted to ensure that they were not affected by COVID. They saw the damage, the carnage that COVID had done across the world, whether in Europe or across continental America. So they had to ensure that all hands were on deck. Did you see the speed at which we shut down the airspace at that time? Did you see how government was busy doubling down on public service announcements, wash your hands, social distancing, don't go out, stay at home, get vaccinated, and blah, blah, blah? If we were to do an aggregate of what had been spent at that time, in money terms alone, let's forget about time and energy, let's talk about only money, you'll be shocked, you'll be shocked how many several billions of naira it runs into, maybe even dollars. In the case of only Nigeria, why? The president didn't want to die. The governors didn't want to die. Those who were elected and appointed didn't want to die, because they knew it was a question of life and death. It was an existential problem. So it was not a question of, does it affect we? No, it only affects Ramsey. It was a universal problem. So it had to be approached from that standpoint. However, the issue of education provides you, as it stands today, quite a number of options. So if the president decides that he doesn't want to take us so seriously, what can you do about it really when he's not directly impacted? This is just giving an example overall, even though we know from what we understand today, this government has been the most understanding, the most compassionate, and the most supportive of ASU because of how we had seen President Bola Tinubu move. But the question is it enough? Is that how it's supposed to be? What is our list of priorities, and how does education rank on that list? That's what we're talking about at this point. And talking about Pengasyn and Dangote, it was a question of Naira and Kobo, strictly speaking. It was about money. It was about the economy. It was about the establishment. It was about vested interest. So who are the vested interests in education, in university education in Nigeria? In any case, let's also be clear, these strikes don't affect the private universities. So you don't expect the political class, a good number of whom own private universities, to feel perturbed about it. So, long and short of the story, the point we're making is that if I had my way, idealistically, I want to say for the next 20 years, 20 calendar years going forward, nobody goes out of this country for for Medicare. Nobody goes out for education of any kind, elementary, secondary, or tertiary. All right, that's the ideal thing I'd like to do.
Maybe we should try it out.
But the question is, who is going to build the cards? Because one time I remember we had Dimeji Bankole as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. A women group went to see him, and they made quite a number of demands. One of them being that public officers or those who have been elected or appointed into public offices and their families should not be allowed to seek medical services abroad or gain access to education overseas. I can remember Mr. Bankole categorically told them, look, of all of these things you guys have talked about, I will make sure that the House of Representatives under my leadership, all right, makes efforts to advance these causes. However, this other one that has to do with recommending or proposing that elected and appointed public officers and their families should not be allowed to travel abroad for health reasons or to for admission purposes, education purposes abroad, will not get off the ground. Now, between when Mr. Bankole left office more than a decade ago and today, have we had that conversation again? Because the vested interest will not allow it to happen in a country where somebody can have malaria and fly out of Africa for medical purposes, all right? So we need a leadership that leads by example. We need a leadership that understands what exactly Nigerians want to see, and not just a leadership that does more of talking than action.
All right. Now let's move away from that story and talk about ADC a little bit. ADC seems to be talking so much these days. I don't know. Maybe because 2027 is drawing close. In one of the papers today, they said lack of popularity pushing defecting governors to join APC.
That's the ADC talking.
That's ADC talking, right?
Well, the thing is, I had a conversation with one of our guests this morning, Ikenga Prince Ezemo, who is from Anambra State and a member of the APC. And what I did ask him was, to what extent, this is me trying to answer your question, to what extent will the ADC show its clouds, all right, in the November 8th governorship election in Anambra State? So there's no such thing. The ADC will at best come a distant fourth in the election, all right? But again, that's by his own assessment, right? I'm not so sure what the metrics are that he used. But the point I'm trying to make with all of this is that the ADC itself needs to, beyond the rhetorics, right, convince Nigerians and indeed the political class that is ready for business. By that I mean it's ready to actually give the APC and indeed the other established parties a run for their money. We have not seen the ADC do that. By the way, today we're hearing that the ADC has suspended some of its leaders and members in Kaduna State. How much that is going to help his cause, we're not so sure, even though there is the possibility that it was just a disciplinary action on the party's part. But if people are leaving PDP in particular, even though we know that's also happening in trickles from other party into the APC, I don't think it's a question of whether those governors who are defecting are popular in their state or not. It's not about popularity. I think the ADC should be more concerned about what exactly is the APC and by extension President Bola Tinubu pitching to these governors, these sitting, serving governors. Okay, well, whether they're serving or not is the debate. The sitting governors to move to the APC. Ramsey, I think I said it here a few days ago. This is the first time since the start of this Fourth Republic in 1999, this democratic experience, that we are seeing this number of sitting governors move. Yes, we know we saw that with Mimiko when we had former President Goodluck Jonathan in office, who moved from the Labour Party at that time into the PDP because it was on the verge of, it was in the middle actually of seeking a second term in office as the then governor of Ondo State. But the question is, at that time or between 1999 till date, have we seen this number of governors leave a party as formidable as the PDP, all in a bid to move into the ruling party, in this case, the All Progressives Congress? No. Categorically no. So it means that the ADC must be seen to be more systematic, must be seen to downplay sentiments, emotions, and biases, and amplify logic and strategy. Very important. All right. So beyond telling Nigerians about governors who are not, by its own estimation, popular, that being the reason they are moving to the APC, it's not going to fly.
All right. But then this defection that is happening like this, like the last time I checked, ADC said the defection wouldn't help PDP. ADC is telling PDP now. But the way this defection is happening, can we now say, because if you ask anyone, they will tell you a one-party system is not a possibility in Nigeria. Even in Lagos today, we saw how governor and people are campaigning for the now president in 2027. And that's to tell you that even the APC is not taking 2027 for granted at all. But then, looking at ADC especially, because El-Rufai, the last time he was on one of our sister stations, said, well, the ADC is not saying anything yet, but then they are strategizing and like trying to form their structure. So now, what do you think of the ADC? Can we say ADC can be a shocker like Labour Party did in 2023? Is there a possibility? Remember, we have actors. In every movie, when they say, talk of actors, you know what it means. We have some good actors in ADC.
Okay, so in the voice of one of our senior colleagues, we are not God, so we cannot tell what tomorrow holds. But now you have referred to some of the personalities in the African Democratic Congress, the ADC, as strong actors. But the question is, what scripts are they bringing, all right, to the set? What scripts are they going to be acting? What scripts are they going to be interpreting? That's the thing. Every good actor that knows their onion would come with a script. And that script must be well written, well interpreted, so that the story can be excellently told. So what story is the ADC telling? And for some people, the personalities in the ADC, politically speaking, and with all due respect, are only recycled politicians. Recycled in the sense that they have been everywhere. Who are those in the ADC? I mean, let's be frank, the facts are out there. They have come from the APC. They've come from the PDP. They've come from Labour. They've come from other parties to form the ADC. What's their grand objective? To unseat President Bola Tinubu. Nigerians are not looking for who is going to unseat President Bola Tinubu, let's be clear. I'm not speaking on behalf of Nigerians, but the facts are also out there. I mean, talk to 1,000 Nigerians if you want to sample or you want to pull off a poll. Ask them, what is your problem? What is your most pressing need? Is it to remove President Bola Tinubu? No. They want a country that works across sectors. And they are not so concerned about who that person will be, as they are eager to want to see the country move from point A to point B in different areas of our national development. It's as simple as that. So I think in terms of the big picture, the ADC has come undone already. So that has to be reviewed by the party and its leadership, and then be better strategic in terms of how they are going to approach the 2027 election. And to your specific question as to whether they can do, quote unquote, the Labour Party magic of 2023.
I like the word you use, magic.
Right.
Because it was really a magic.
It was. I'm so sure that the APC, if it wants to be sincere with itself, would agree that they never saw that coming. And the PDP too, because I remember immediate past governor of Edo State, Governor Obaseki, had said, I mean, the video was all over the place, that look, he was talking to leaders of the PDP in Benin City. He said, look, if we're not careful, these obedient movement people will overrun all of us. We have to be up and doing. We can't sleep on it now. All right. So the ADC must realize that it doesn't happen on the basis of the fact that Obi and the obedient movement had done it between 2022 and 2023. The question is, do you have the Obi clout? Do you have the Obi factor? All right. Can you command that kind of base? All right. Will you be organic? Those are the things we need to look at. How many votes? What was the volume of votes the Labour Party got at the presidential level? How did they get that vote within that short time? Ask yourself too, how much of time does the ADC have between now and election day, all else equal, first quarter of 2027? Who are those people who would drive this process? Do they have a common front? Also remember, Ramsey, very important, in the case of the Labour Party, there was no fight as to who would become the flag bearer of the party. It was clear. At the point just before Mr. Obi moved from the PDP to the Labour Party, it was Professor Pat Utomi, whom had already made himself available to say, look, I would like to run for president on the platform of the Labour Party. But once Peter Obi moved from the PDP to the Labour Party, it was clear that he would be the candidate. And right there in Asaba, Delta State capital, Obi was anointed to become the presidential candidate of the Labour Party. So it was more like a smooth transition, even though we know at the point it was late Donyo Cook by God rest his soul, who had been the placeholder for him. In the case of the ADC, at what point will the party decide on who becomes its flag bearer? What will be the process? Will it be free, fair, and credible? Will it be transparent? Or is it going to be such that by the time it's all said and done, it becomes a question of, no, this process was not free and fair, it was marked by violence, it was manipulated, it was rigged against some persons, and then some candidates now leave the party and then move elsewhere. If you have that, it means that the ADC is going to be far worse than even the worst political party as it stands today. So it just shows that it's not about wanting to use the Labour Party model. It's a question of how strategic are you going to be? Who are those you're bringing into the party? On what basis? Do you have the clout? Do you have the resources? Do you have the long-term thinking to make that happen?
Do you have the long-term thinking to make that happen? Well, it's happened for the Labour Party, but we're not very sure if it's going to happen for African Democratic Congress, that is ADC. But they have said the lack of popularity is the reason why governors are defecting to join APC, and at some point, the PDP say, well, people who are defecting will regret at the long run. We're still waiting for that time. 2027, you think it's far away? It's not very far. Let's go on a quick break. After this break, we'll return and the conversation continues on the desk. Well, education, they say, is key. Some people said education is very expensive. And some other persons will tell you, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance, which is a no-no for me, as a matter of fact. Now, let's look at one of the stories that made round today on the National Daily, which is about NEL Fund as they begin 2025-26 students loan. And of course, the portal is being opened already. According to what the past ASU, I was in the stakeholders meeting, that's the town hall meeting organized by TED Fund, and we had a lot of people coming to talk. And the past president of ASU came out to talk, and he said these things, well, we should call a spade, that a lot of students are running away from this NEL Fund because it is a loan. How many of them will be able to pay back their loan? And of course, that according to him, I think he said about 4,000 students or so have benefited from the NEL Fund initiative. Now, the portal is reopened again. Let's look at it now, Uyi. As it is, when everybody heard about NEL Fund, it was just, well, wow, what an initiative. But when people heard about what you need to present, the prerequisite, I could remember some people that spoke with me. Somebody said, if I have somebody like this, will I be going to take loan? If I have somebody, yes, now, if I have somebody like this to stand for me that I know personally, why should I be going to take loan? Right. Paying of school fee and all of that, feeding of how much should not be a stress for me if I know all these kind of people. And I think all that is bygone right now. Now the portal is reopening for 2025-26. A lot of people have said so many things. At a point in time, there was a probe into NEL Fund because some people were not really satisfied with how it was being run and all of that. Some people said, well, it's not okay. Some other person said it's okay and all of that. What is your perspective to the NEL Fund initiative?
All right, Ramsey, I think, okay, so you and I have spent time talking about education-related issues here on the program. I mean, not just on the desk, but across many programs. The fact of the matter is, the idea behind NEL Fund itself is very commendable, really. I think the model is most likely borrowed from the US and other developed countries, right? But it's not just so much about the model now as it is about the implementation, how you drive the process, and the framework that you create around it, all right? You already made an allusion to a case where there had been a probe one time because there had also been this issue of, allegations of mismanagement and in some cases embezzlement of funds meant for disbursements as loans to students, all right? So, this was in the very teething phase of the program implementation. So was that not a bad omen already? Well, nothing is perfect to say. At least we started something commendable, something laudable. However, do we have checks in place now to ensure that we don't again find ourselves in such a situation where we have to suspect a couple of individuals or institutions of sharp practices or outright fraud as far as the NEL Fund scheme is concerned? So that's number one. Number two is, do you also need to, introduce neck-breaking measures, so extremely stringent measures in such a way that students who otherwise would have needed and appreciated this scheme will have to hold on for a second and ask themselves, is this really worth it? Like you said, if the requirements are such that I have to know a certain person of a certain status to be able to access this loan. Now the question is, if I knew such a person, would I need the loan in the first instance? All right. So the prerequisites should not be such that I have to scratch my skin, all right, or provide an arm and a leg to be able to access the loan. So if we are taking this idea, this model from what we have seen overseas, beyond the shores of Africa, The question is, are we also learning? Are we also understudied, or have we understudied how they've been implementing theirs in such a way that we don't create 4 problems in a bid to solve one?
All right, our time is already up, but before we go, the issue of tanker explosion, lives have been lost. See, I was discussing with someone today. The person was telling me of how the sister is ill, and we're talking about it, and how money is being spent moving from one hospital to the other. Even until today, they were still running to the hospital test and all of that. Then I said something. I said, well, a lot of people are complaining of hunger. If the hunger is the only thing and there is no ailment, no disease, you're not losing anyone, your loved ones are not sustaining injuries and at the hospital that will demand 1 or 2 attention and financial implications, it's even better than having the issue of you having to spend the money that is not there in the first place that you would have used for other things. The issue of tanker explosion in Nigeria is becoming worrisome because it's either you hear of fuel spilling or people running to scoop fuel that is floating on the floor, and so many. I wouldn't want to say so much about this because I know someone very close, okay, a security officer who have lost his life as a result of this. Okay, so now what do you think can be done so that these things don't happen again? Because a lot of people are complaining of the fact that Nigerians believe in damage control than preventive measures.
You know, we have heard, again, Niger State in particular has been a victim more than once. The most recent one that has even necessitated this conversation is about Niger State.
Niger State.
The governor, Umar Bago, has openly commiserated with those families whose loved ones unfortunately lost their lives in this most recent incident. But you see, Ramsey, when a problem is deep-rooted and systematic, you are going to need twice as much efforts to address them. Like you said, we are more reactive than we should be proactive, all right, in the way we approach issues. We would rather wait until the damage has been done. We have incurred so much of, catastrophe and chaos all over the place, and then everybody's running helter-skelter, everybody's running from pillar to post and things like that. I'm not so sure who should be held liable, but these are systemic problems. The tanker falls off the road, tanker falls sideways, product spills, people around that area, around the community would come around, try to scoop because these are economic issues. And in the middle of all that is a spark somewhere, it leads to something else. There's flame, and then you have a fireball. People are getting roasted right in the middle of it. By some news reports, we are hearing that this instant case in Niger State took at least 34 lives, with several others injured, hospitalized, and things like that. And we hope that at the end of the day, we don't see the casualty number spike, because most times what you find in instances like this is you take, for example, say 70 persons to the hospital. In the end, they tell you that 16 more persons lost their lives because of the degrees of injuries they had sustained on account of the inferno, the heat and all of that. And you know how this kind of fire is. It moves at the speed of light. So it's not your normal flame that you find with your traditional stove or something. So we're saying all of this to say that we must be more deliberate, we must be more intentional. We must have a system that holds people accountable. We must not politicize everything. The question is, what was the problem now? Was it an issue of the tanker itself not being roadworthy? Was it the state of the road itself? Because I've heard people, including those in the media, complain about that road, that axis on that Suleja road. Was that the problem? Is it possible it was negligence on the part of the driver? And then has it always been negligence on the part of the drivers every time we saw this kind of thing happen? So we must be analytical. We must be scientific. We must be problem-solving ready. We must be solution-oriented. Because the question is, after this instant case in Niger State, what happens? Tomorrow, God forbid, there's another case. Ramsey and Oyi come back here to talk about it.
Well, that's it for me. That's the peak of it. That's the peak of it. I think it's high time you don't wait for us to come talk about all these things before something is being done about it. The Federal Road Safety Corps have been doing sensitization, talking about issues like this. But then, What about the adherence and taking of action? Many thanks for joining us. This is going to be the size. This is how much time could take us today. I didn't know that time has gone because the conversation was very interesting. Unfortunately, our second guest couldn't join us today because of network issues, which will be worked on subsequently. Well, you know where we are in Nigeria. Network issue is always happening from time to time. But thank God that Uyi Agbomofuegbe was here to do justice to the conversation alongside myself today. Thank you for joining us on the desk.
My delight, Sir Ramsey.
All right, this is the size of the conversation for today. And as it is, the desk will return again. My name is Ramsey Enoch. Bye-bye for now.